Welcome to episode 376 of the DFO Rundown presented by Bet365. Download the app and use the promo code NATION, NATION, to get in on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Your home for the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, which will begin on Saturday. 2 games on Saturday, probably similar to last year when the series started 2, 4, and then 2 late ones starting on the Monday, and likely we'll get the same thing this year. I'm Jason Greger. We welcome in Frank Saravalli. And Frank, it's set. We know who's in. The Montreal Canadiens punched their ticket last night to become the final team to get in, and now we're ready to roll. Before we get to that, which team do you think is going to look at this as the most disappointing season? Is it obviously the Rangers, or is there other candidates?
No, I think there's definitely other candidates. I mean, I guess it just depends on how disappointing or how recently disappointing you want to consider it. I mean, did any team have a more disastrous season than the Nashville Predators? I mean, we were talking, I viewed that team as a threat to win the Central this year with the moves that they made in the offseason. Now, when you sacrifice your future in terms of mortgaging a lot of your cap space away for older players, you're hoping that you can at least make the playoffs in the first year or two of your build. Now that they didn't and finished in 30th place, I think they're staring down a possibility this summer where they have to move one of their first round picks. They have 3 just to get off of a really bad contract. So Preds, disaster. Detroit Red Wings. Little Caesars Arena has been open since 2017. Steve Yzerman hired 2019. A team in your own division, the Montreal Canadiens, qualifies for the Stanley Cup final in 2021. Since 2021, they tear it down, build it back up, and make the playoffs in between. Where are you at, Red Wings? That's tough. Rangers, that speaks for itself. Sabres, I mean, woof. Canucks were a team 1 win away from the Western Conference final last year. I mean, there's tons of candidates in disappointing seasons.
Yeah, the Preds definitely are up there. They got a lot of guys signed. Like I was looking at who's their UFA. They got what? I get like Andres Englund. Like they don't have anybody like to shed any sort of salary cap whatsoever if they're looking to make moves. So it will be fascinating to see. Like if you have to give up a first rounder to get rid of someone, that's not ideal. I would say Nashville should try to avoid doing the Detroit Red Wings Jake Wallman trade. That did not work. You paid a second to get rid of him. You tell me they couldn't have used Jake Wallman on their blue line this year in Detroit. So yeah,
repeated and continued failures of Steve Yzerman and his pro scouting staff of evaluating talent on defense.
Well, defense, it's awful. Like it's ridiculous kind of what they've done. And that's driven them into the ditch 100%. And it will be fascinating offseason to see what those 16 teams do. You know, there's other teams like you look at the San Jose Sharks. They lost 11 straight to end the season, Frank. And you know what? The young kids, Eklund had a good year, and Celebrini and Will Smith, and that's great. But man, they got to find a way to improve their defense. But I will say this, and then we'll get to the playoffs. If you're the San Jose Sharks, you've got potential. You've really only been in your rebuild 2 years. I would argue it's been 2 NHL seasons of rebuild mode for that team. I know they've missed the playoffs 6 years in a row. They were still trying to be a playoff team during those 6 years. I look at their rebuilds, really only 2 years of being rebuild. The last thing they need to do is try to improve their team so they finish 21st or 22nd and pick 10th. And you want to give yourself the best odds to get in the Gavin McKenna draft lottery next year. And I know that might sound painful for the Sharks, but if you're committed to the rebuild, that's what the commitment means.
Well, a lot of teams are going to be doing that next year. Now, the only question I have for the Sharks is, and I heard this last night, I was watching the Sharks game, and one of their lead-ins on the broadcast to the final game of the regular season was, no last place team has ever had more fun. And I was thinking to myself, in theory, that sounds good because you contrast that with kind of how miserable things were for the Blackhawks for a good chunk of this year, who finished ahead of them. And then I'm thinking to myself, I don't know that I necessarily love that. Like, it's one thing to be excited about coming to work every day, and if you're a young player, you're happy to be in the NHL. But does any of that create an environment where you say, geez, these guys are okay with losing?
And like when you're losing, you look at different things. And the fan base, you know what? They bring in Celebrini and they bring in Smith and they see Eklund. And so they're like, okay, we got belief. But I can tell you for years, having watched it firsthand, when Edmonton had a decade of darkness, they missed the playoffs 10 years in a row. They actually missed the playoffs 12 of 13. They only made it once in 2017. They had a theme amongst their fans for many years called exciting last place hockey. And that sounded good for a year or two, and it got old pretty fast. And so, well, right now it's like, oh, this is great. This is like the early stages of the dating relationship where you're giddy and, you know, even the guy is texting heart emojis to the girl and you're all like, oh, this is wonderful. Trust me.
Pain hasn't even set in.
And it wears off. And I'm telling you, the Shark fans, well, no one's had more fun. Like, okay. But A, I don't believe that's true. And B, that's not going to work much longer. But here's where the organization can't get tricked into being like, well, your fans aren't going to suddenly come if you're 21st or 22nd. I'm sorry. They're not going to come anymore. San Jose's fans are still good. If you look at their weekend game attendance, they had a lot of sellouts. Weekdays, not great, especially because the team's not good. And that's going to continue whether you're 30th, 32nd, 27th, 21st, until they're a playoff team or battling for a playoff spot, which I don't think is realistic to go from that to next season. They just got to remain the course and be patient.
I think what's really scary for the Sharks is that, unlike Chicago, where most of their top end prospects were not on the team this year, you've got Sam Dickinson coming. I mean, maybe you could make the argument Quentin Musty, maybe Luca Cagnoni. The Sharks are kind of what you see is what you get. And that's the scary part, is they're still a long, long, long way off.
Well, you look at, I think Askarov and net would be the one, right? He didn't really play there. So, and that's the other thing. I look at him and like they think Cam Lund maybe is going to be a player, and we'll see. But I look at, to me, the most important signing for the Sharks this summer is to get a good, solid veteran backup who can split time. And I don't even care if I got to overpay him for a year. The Sharks, they just got to get to the floor. And I would sign a really good veteran goalie who's proven he can be a solid backup split guy. It's going to be a great teammate and help Askarov, because trust me, there's going to be tough nights for the goaltender still next year. It's not like the Sharks are going to magically improve. And so that to me was a key, is what I would be looking at.
Doesn't that pull you away from the McKenna race, though, potentially? Like, that guy might add for you 8 to 10 points that you don't want.
I don't know if it's going to add that much. And, like just a competent goalie who, more so, Frank, can help the young kid when he's going to get shelled, because there'll be nights where he gets shelled.
But if that's the case, might as well just keep an incompetent veteran guy in Alexander Georgiev.
Yeah, but
I say that like tongue in cheek, but 873 save percentage in 30 games with the Sharks this year, no bueno.
Yeah, if you watch the Sharks, Frank, I don't know if there's any goaltender that was going to put up big numbers there. You know what I mean? Like, environment matters.
If anything, though, if you're going to give Georgiev flowers, at least he's consistent. With Colorado, way better team, 874 save percentage, goes to San Jose, 873.
Wow, yeah. Same thing. So the Sharks are interesting. And then obviously the draft lottery comes up, them in Chicago. But hey, what about the Nashville Predators, Frank? You mentioned at least they're in the running. They got the third best odds to win the draft, and Boston 4th, Seattle 5th. So those are that's how it goes for the draft.
I believe draft lottery for you fans out there. They haven't set the date yet. I was told somewhere in the May 5th to 7th range. So 5th, 6th, or 7th. Just
okay.
FYI.
Although Philly, actually, now that I say that, Philly might have the 4th most, because they only had 21 regulation wins. Oh no, they got a game left. That's why. So if Philly could move up 2 spots, Frank, if they could lose tonight in regulation.
That's
Flyer fans.
Like hundreds of ping pong balls, or
that's a big difference.
Dozens
it
of
is,
ping pong balls.
right? So that's a big loss tonight for the Flyers. If we want to look at it that way, potential big loss can jump them from the 6th best odds to the 4th best odds in the draft lottery. So Flyer fans, that's what you root for tonight. Now, the NHL playoffs, Frank, will begin on Saturday. We know there's going to be 2 games, Winnipeg and St. Louis, and then, of course, Colorado and Dallas. Let's start with the Colorado-Dallas series because of the report post-game and from Emma Lingen saying Jason Robertson left Bridgestone Arena with a brace on his right knee, still looks to be in a lot of pain, was her tweet. That could be horrific news for Dallas.
Jason Robertson had such a tremendous end to the regular season. I mean, you look back on his finish since being cut from the Four Nations Faceoff team, which I think, given his start to the season, you understood it, but it also said to me at the time, holy smokes, the NHL or the USA team is in a spot where they can turn down a 40-goal, 100-point scorer, and that would have never happened 10 years ago. But Robertson finished out the year since that date with 30-plus goals in 56 games, 66 points. So he was north of a point-per-game player to finish the year. 30 goals in that stretch is very impressive. And I think this playoff run, more than any that I can remember, I feel like so much of it in prognosticating and picking series depends on the veracity of injury reports, of which we have very few. So you got to trust your gut and whatever you believe is happening. That goes not just for Matthew Tkachuk and the Florida Panthers, but Brady Tkachuk and the Ottawa Senators. Then you've got the Dallas Stars, now not just with Robertson, but also with Heiskanen. Every minute that Miro Heiskanen is not playing, I think is materially hurting the Dallas Stars' chances to advance. So does he miss half the series? Does he miss the whole series? How does that changes your viewpoint? I don't know how it couldn't, because yes, teams are more than one player, but I just don't like the way Dallas's defense is constructed on the right side. So whenever you take out the top left guy, you're putting yourself in some significant peril.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's the injuries. It's the one factor, Frank, that's the most unpredictable and can be the most impactful for teams. Because you look, people would say, hey, I think there's 7 or 8 legit Stanley Cup contenders, depending on who you talk to and maybe how people view things. And for a lot of them, now some of them play each other, Tampa, Florida, Dallas, Colorado. So even if they're fully healthy, 2 of those teams are going to be out. But there are teams with injuries. And like Matthew Tkachuk, how healthy is he going to be? Miro Heiskanen, how healthy is he going to be? And you look at this series, Colorado-Dallas, right now I favor Colorado strictly for the injury report, because we don't know Heiskanen. Like Sagan just came back and played a game. So, obviously he's going to be ready for the playoffs. But, I talked to Jim Nill 2 weeks ago and he still wasn't certain if Heiskanen was going to be ready. And, I haven't seen any report that says he's going to be ready for early. So even if he only misses, let's say 1, 2, or 3 games, that can be the difference in a 7-game series. And now you throw in Robertson. That's a huge blow. As you mentioned, the guy's been on fire, right? Even since Four Nations, he's got 15 goals and 29 points. You lose him, you can't just snap your fingers and replace that production.
So the injury report is one thing, but what about the way that the Stars just absolutely limped into the postseason?
Yeah.
They have 7 straight losses on their way in.
That's crazy.
2 of them in OT, 5-3, 3-2, 6-5, 4-0, 5-3, 6-4, 5-1. That is a shitload of goals against. And yeah, I get it. They were kind of already locked into facing the Avs, so maybe not all that motivated, plus the injuries on top of it. I don't like any bit of how the Dallas Stars enter this series. And for those reasons, I'm picking the Avs.
100%. It is. I thought it was a coin flip. Because we've known this series for a while. It was just, for the most part. And I was looking at it, I was like, oh, geez, I think this is a 7-game series. It's tight. But Now with the Robertson news, when I saw that late last night from Emma, I was like, oh my goodness, that's a major change. And then Heiskanen, and then just how the Stars have been playing. Jake Ottinger's been lit up a few games here down the stretch. Like, you look at some teams and, you might go 4-4-2, Frank, in your last 10 because you've secured something. But it's kind of how you lose too that matters. And I agree. All of a sudden, it looks like Colorado to me is, I don't even think this series goes 7 anymore.
Yeah, I've got the Avs in 6.
Yeah. And a week ago I might have changed my mind, but right now I would think of that. Now, what about the Mikko Rantanen? I don't know if the revenge series can be aligned. I think it's possible, but what do you expect from Rantanen, who hasn't really lit it up by any stretch of the imagination in Dallas yet?
Hasn't lit it up since leaving Nathan MacKinnon. Really is the truth. Didn't do it in Carolina. Has been okay in Dallas.
Yeah, in Dallas, he's almost a point a game guy.
Yeah, and look, I don't know if that undersells where he's at. 18 points, 5 goals in 20 games. It's fine. I mean, the theater is going to be fascinating, and I just think the stylistic clash of these two teams, high-end talent. If Heiskanen plays 2 all-world defensemen in Makar and Heiskanen going head-to-head, there's a lot to really like about the series. There's, I just, with the Rantanen part of it, I don't know how much that's really going to factor in. I think after the first game, they're just going to kind of settle in.
Yeah. I do like Rantanen. To me, is a wild card because we've seen in the past that he's been a big time playoff performer, but you're right. There's no Nathan MacKinnon that obviously impacts it. But I think when you're paying the guy $12 million, you've got to be a guy who can be the difference maker regardless of who you're playing with. Like, you know what? They've got other good forwards in Dallas. Like, there's no Nathan MacKinnon, but there's still some pretty good players.
Mm-hmm. So given now that we know all 8 first round matchups, if somehow I created a system of blinders for you and you were only permitted to watch one, you couldn't, like, your TV would black out if you tried to turn on another one. What one of the 8 would you want to watch?
Ooh, man, there's some juicies here. I go Tampa, Florida.
I agree. I mean, Battle of Ontario will be good.
Edmonton, LA for the 4th time would be good. This Colorado, Dallas, like, those would be my top 4.
Yeah, I would say this Edmonton, LA one, which we'll dive into on the other end of Tyler's segment. I wasn't that excited about it, but the way that they entered into it with Danault's comments, the physicality, then McDavid and his sort of notion of, pushing back against this notion of a walking wounded team, which it was great that he did that, but also wasn't necessarily rooted in reality since they're not going to have Matthias Ekholm. They just added a layer to this series that I think we were missing. And I guess it's way easier to pinpoint which series no one will really care about, which is Carolina, New Jersey.
Yeah. Yeah, that probably would rank as the one that I think Carolina's winning. I don't know if it's going to be overly riveting. So yeah, you're right. I don't think it's going to be an overly physical series. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe it turns out to be a slobber knocker, but on paper it doesn't look that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, what about the one series you think could be sneaky good?
Canadians, Caps.
I think mini Vegas. I just think Foligno, Trennan, Middleton, Vegas plays hard. I think that's a series that could get quite physical.
Oh, I think it's going to be bruising either way. And I do think, I think Vegas finds a way to win, but I don't know that it's going to be easy. Anyone overlooking Mini by the way that they played their way into the playoffs, almost lost their way into the playoffs? Look, I just think that team, I brought this up with Tyler yesterday. So the Wild last year, they didn't make the playoffs, right? Really disappointing season. So you bounce back this year. Kirill Kaprizov missed 41 games. Jared Spurgeon missed 16. Joel Eriksson Ek missed 36. Matt Zuccarello missed 13. Ryan Hartman missed 13. Jacob Middleton missed 15. And Jonas Brodin missed 32. If I told you that they had all those injuries on a non-playoff team last year, that they would get into the playoffs this year, you would have been like, dude, what an accomplishment. And instead, people are like, the Wild, so mid.
Yeah, I honestly, I give them a lot of credit. I think they're going to be a surprisingly difficult out for Vegas. I think that makes that series a lot tougher. We'll get to it in a sec. Now let's finish off. We got Winnipeg and the St. Louis Blues. And the St. Louis Blues, of course, come in one of the hottest teams down the stretch. They had a little hiccup, then they needed a win, and they got a win heading into the final game. And really, with conviction, they're up 4-0 in the first period. They're just like, hey, we're not even screwing around. Let's go. Now, they don't have Dylan Holloway, who's, I think, probably been their most consistent player all year. But they do have the NHL's leading scorer since Four Nations, Robert Thomas. And that line has been dominant for the St. Louis Blues. So you have the Jets, you have the Blues. Who do you like and why?
I like the Jets. I understand all the facets of how St. Louis played down the stretch. We had a great breakdown a couple weeks ago on Daily Faceoff Live with John Goyens, which showed the impact that Jim Montgomery has had on that team with their attention to detail. I'm really trying hard to create in my mind a path for the Blues to win. And it's obviously not impossible. Like, this wouldn't be on the Richter scale of upsets. Like, St. Louis winning this series wouldn't register that high, even though Winnipeg won the President's Trophy. But I'm not giving St. Louis the edge in goal. They definitely don't have the better defense core, although Cam Fowler was maybe the best trade deadline period acquisition that no one's talked about. And I don't give them any advantage at forward. They don't have the higher end talent, Winnipeg does, and they don't have the depth, Winnipeg does. Where's the edge for the St. Louis Blues? I struggle to find one.
No, I agree. Now Robert Thomas, the way he's played, like, he's controlled games. He's been unreal, and he's going to have to be that way. He's going to have to continue his production that he's had here down the stretch. That's really the only way I think the St. Louis Blues can win the series. Now, Binnington, I guess maybe he can show up and play great, but like, Robert Thomas has 40 points in his last 26 games. It's been stellar and leading the entire NHL. Now, they don't have Dylan Holloway, who has been excellent for them, and doesn't sound, latest report where they're not sure he's even going to play in the series. So if I look at the Blues, I think for them to win, Binnington's going to have to steal them 1, maybe 2 games, and Robert Thomas is going to have to be the best player in the series. Otherwise, and that's hard to say because you got Connor Hellebuck, who's obviously been one of the best players in the NHL all year long. And the Winnipeg Jets, Frank, there is no doubt in my mind. Like, they have had, Kevin Woodley talked about the Winnipeg Jets and Connor Hellebuck. Connor Hellebuck has had the second most favorable environment behind Calvin Pickard of guys who have, won 20 games, so played a lot. And that makes a big, it's not, they don't have to just rely on Hellebuck. Like, they've given him good opportunities. Obviously has great numbers. And I think we saw last year, Winnipeg was the best defensive team, and it fell apart in the playoffs. Like, it completely fell apart. They gave up 28 goals in 5 games, for goodness sake. So to me, I think the Jets, there's still the memory of, guys, we lost because our identity just cratered in the playoffs. And I don't see that happening. And I also don't see the Blues don't have a McKinnon and Rantanen who can just, or a Makar who can run all over you like Colorado did last year.
Yeah, I think St. Louis, despite their winning streak, I don't really look at St. Louis all that differently than I look at Nashville last year. If you don't win 15 in a row, you don't make the playoffs. If you don't, I mean, they still almost didn't make the playoffs after winning 12 in a row. It came down to game 82 to clinch it. So I think beware of declaring the Blues as this unbelievable first round, can't miss, gonna run the table. You can draw the comparisons you want to 2019. I just don't see it. I think the Blues are a really flawed team.
What do you have the Jets winning in then?
I have them winning in 6.
Okay. I'll take the Jets in 5
Okay.
in the series. Let's welcome in Tyler Yaremchuk for another edition of Buy or Sell.
What's going on, boys? Buy or Sell, brought to you by our friends at Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner and every suspenseful moment in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. Download the app, use the promo code NATION. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. I got a couple here for you guys, but let's start with some non-playoff ones. Frank and I had an interesting inbox question yesterday on DFO Live about this idea of the Calgary Flames seeing what they did this year and saying, all right, let's load up a little bit this summer. So they have 2 first-round picks. Buy or sell on the Flames trading one of those 2 first-round picks before the draft, Greggs?
Whew. I'm going to sell. I guess that I'll depend on, what am I getting in return for one, right? There's always that factor. So I won't rule it out 100%, but I'm going to sell on it and say they stay the course.
I'm going to buy because I just don't think this draft is very good. If you can get something that helps you now, there's no guarantee that that player pans out in the mid to late first round and becomes anything. And we've talked about the overvaluation of draft picks as a whole throughout the league. This is the perfect year to try and move one of those, especially if you have multiple. It's a little, Vandalay Industries, importer, exporter here, to make a Seinfeld reference. Like you can still have your future and make your first round pick and then trade another one and help you now. And I think the sooner that the Flames get moving in that direction, the better off they're going to be. We saw this year with Dustin Wolf's play that he's not going to allow you to be a bottom feeder. He's going to keep pulling you closer toward that middle. Theoretically, I mean, of course, goaltending is incredibly fickle, but I love the bounce back that we saw from Wolf in April. His numbers in March were not very good, and he played a ton. But the way that he finished off his season, I thought was very, very impressive and a building block for moving forward. So Wolf's going to drag you closer. You've got tons of cap space. You've got prospects, picks. Your pipeline is looking good. You need higher end difference makers. Those are really hard to come by, but if you can add a decent piece by moving the first round pick, I think they have to consider it.
Yeah, again, like you said, 30th in scoring, man, they're probably comfortably in a playoff spot if they're 24th in scoring, never mind even like in the top half of the league. Next one I got for you guys, let's go a little west to Vancouver. Obviously, a lot of talk about head coach Rick Tocchet. You buying or selling that Rick Tocchet is back as the Canucks head coach next year, Frank?
I struggle with this one. I really do, because I see it both ways. And I'm not, me, I'm not a fence sitter. If you put a gun to my head, I'm going to say that Rick Tocchet walks.
Simple as that.
Yeah, I think in the end, there's a lot of variables here. And I think there's a lot to be determined. Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford have been very vocal about wanting to keep him. And then you heard the push from Quinn Hughes. And so my big question is, if the general manager and president of hockey ops want to keep the head coach, why isn't it done already?
I'm gonna buy. I think he stays. I do think like Quinn Hughes. I look at the Vancouver Canucks. You've got your best player, and you have done everything in your power to have your best player question if he wants to re-sign long-term in your organization. When you look at the drama that's just been around that team, and obviously they've had some injury issues. I know that's a factor, but there's just been a lot of self-induced drama. And so to me, when he comes out and says, man, I really like this guy, I want him, you got to throw him an olive branch at some point and be like, all right. And so, okay, we need Quinn Hughes, because if we don't have Quinn Hughes down the road, we got no chance here. So I think that's what they have to look at. And now it's up to Rick Tocchet, of course, but money will talk. And I think you can, you can offer money. You can offer him significant money. if you like, and make him one of the higher paid coaches and move on from there. And I think if I'm Rick Tocchet, at times I've sensed that Rick disagreed with some of the drama that was started. And I don't think he was the starter of it. I don't think he really likes it. And I think that's what it's going to come down to, Frank, is does he feel comfortable that the path moving forward has less internal drama?
Okay, so let me just add one thing on the back end of that comment, because I think you're spot on in your analysis. Where's the drama coming from then? And for me, when I look at the Vancouver Canucks and I look at the last 15 years, we've had multiple different regimes. We've had all of the players change out, yet it still continues to be a toxic operation from top to bottom. It all comes back to the very top for me.
100%.
And that's why I really struggle with this, because in the end, I don't think it really comes down to money. Like, I think what the Canucks are going to offer to make him be a high-end paid coach, which he deserves, it's not going to be any different than what he can get anywhere else. It's going to come down to, does Rick Tocchet have enough assurances that, whether it's from management or from ownership, that he's going to be able to have the juice to run things the way that he wants it to be run? If you're not getting that, I don't really see a lot of incentive to stay, because you could go build somewhere else.
That's fair. All right. One more non-playoff one for you guys. Then I'll throw you a couple of quick playoff ones. But in Nashville, it's very interesting to look that they have $18 million in cap space. And I mean, pretty much a full group of forwards signed for next year. Pretty much a full group of defensemen, although I'd imagine they're looking for some upgrades there. Both their goalies. The point is, they could weirdly double down and just keep spending. But my question is, do you think they could move out a contract? So out of their top 6 highest paid skaters, Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, O'Reilly, who's the only one without trade protection, Yossi, and Brady Shea, buy or sell on Nashville being able to move off of one of those players, Greg's?
Oh, I'll buy. I think there's going to be some teams, because if you're buying right now, you're probably buying low on a few of them. And I still think there's teams that believe Jonathan Marchessault can be a lot better player than he was. I thought he got better as the season went along. But yeah, I'll buy all day long. I think there'd be interest even at Ryan O'Reilly. He's only got 2 years left at 4.5. The salary cap's going up. I think definitely if Trotz wants to move on from some of them, there will be options to do it.
What about UC Saros?
Well, they traded Askarov, who's their goalie.
Hey, extension hasn't even kicked in yet.
Such a bad extension. I mean, look, I get that he was a franchise cornerstone goalie, but I don't know. I think we still do a really poor job evaluating how goalies play relative to the structure and players in front of them. But sub 900, one of the smallest goalies in the league, just embarking on a $62 million contract over 8 years that takes him to age. He turns 30 in 2 days on Saturday. So we'll take him to his 38th birthday. Added to the list of brutal contracts for the Preds. Look at all these guys and their ages. Forsberg, 30. Stamkos, 35. Marchessault, 34. O'Reilly, 34. Colton Sissons, 31. Roman Josi, 34. Brady Shea, 31. UC Saros turns 30. Ugly. UGLY.
All right, a couple quick playoff ones for you guys. I know, listen, first round, everyone loves to pick kind of sexy underdogs and this 8 seed or this 7 seed is going to pull off an upset. I'm maybe not necessarily picking a bunch of upsets, but I will say every wild card team pushes their series to at least 6 games. You buy or sell on that, Frank? Or do you think there's a quick one somewhere in there?
So St. Louis, Minnesota. No, I'm going to sell. I think there's a chance for Vegas to make this a relatively short series. I think there's a chance for the Jets to make this a relatively short series. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
All right. Greg's?
Oh yeah, I'll sell. Yeah, I think there's 2 really good ones. I think Washington has really good potential to be I think I picked them in 5. So Yes, I will. I'd love to see it. Now, the better question is one going to go 7? That would be interesting to see if there's one that can push it. But I think the top teams this year have been pretty good. And, those wild card teams, it's funny, Frank and I probably see the Minnesota Vegas series different, but because I might give them the best chance to extend it the longest.
I told you this yesterday on your show, Greg's. I think I'm picking Minnesota straight up in that series. I just think we're kind of due. Last year, there wasn't anything really all that stunning. You go back to 2 years ago, you had Seattle beating Colorado. Like, I think we're due for like a real true stunner. And I like the way Minnesota's playing, and they're healthy when they're healthy.
I'll say this. If we're going to get a stunner, it's not going to be in the West.
I think it's going to be in the East, like in Ottawa or Montreal.
I think both of those teams are ripe for upsets.
All right. Last one I got for you guys. I know you're about to start talking about the Pacific Division. I was looking at the odds to have the most goals in the series between the Oilers and Kings, and I'm going to frame this in a different way. If I gave you 2 options, you can have both McDavid and Draisaitl to lead the series in goals, so just one of them, or the field, which gets you every Kings player, gets you Zach Hyman, every other Oiler. Would you buy on McDavid or Draisaitl, or would you buy on the field, Greg's?
Ooh. It's a juicy question.
Yeah, all those guys.
Is it really?
Well, it is, because if you look at the last, if you look at the last 3 years of that one, obviously Draisaitl has crushed LA, right? What has he got? I think in the last 3 playoff years, he has 17 goals in 18 games. So,
how many series has someone other than 97 or 29 led the Oilers in goals?
Well, Kane did. Kane had 7 against the Kings in 2022, and Zach Hyman had a big series. So possible, but yeah, it's more so LA. I'm wondering, but LA just doesn't score enough.
Who's gonna do it on the Kings?
Yeah. I'll still take 29 and 97.
Yeah, easy one for you, Frank.
Yeah, we're talking about 2 of the best playoff performers of all time, not just their generation, and I'm just trying to create so Hyman I could see, Kane I can't. Who else would step up and do it? And I don't think any of the Kings, the Kings they've got the 28th ranked power play. Like, where are they getting their goals from?
Well, I will say this though, they're 5 forward power play that they've put up here in the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
And they moved Kempe to the top. It actually looks it's looked really good. I've watched the Kings games, and that to me is kind of the walkout. Well, the whole, we'll get to it, but the whole series to me comes down to special teams, because that's where Edmonton has absolutely murdered them the last 3 years.
Yeah, and that's why I don't really see a pat. So I'm crossing off all 18 King skaters as goal leader for the series. And then I'm going, who else is it on the Oilers?
So I did my research on this one, surprisingly enough. And last year, the only series where one of McDavid or Draisaitl led the Oilers in scoring was the Cup final. Every other series, it was either Hyman or Bouchard. Bouchard led against Vancouver.
In points or goals?
Goals.
So Bouchard led the series in goals of all the players?
Yeah, he had 4 goals that series. 2 game winners and 2 other
4 goals in 7 games. It's not. Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, I was doing that research for betting purposes, so thought I'd flip it into actual work. But there you go. That is a wrap on this week's edition of Fill in the Blank, which is also brought to you by our playoff coverage here at Daily Faceoff. Live updates, expert analysis, everything you need to know about the action both on and off the ice. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and if you want to rep your favorite team in style this playoff season, we got fresh gear up at nationgear.ca.
Yeah, Kempe would be the guy. If I was picking a King, it would be Kempe.
I can't look. I picked Kempe to beat. Remember, Tyler? We were in Montreal. We were having some beers at Le Poche Bleu, and we did our preview show. And I said, "Watch out for Adrian Kempe. Gonna have a massive Four Nations face-off." Not good. Kevin Fiala, 34, 35 goal scorer this season. Good player, but I'm not he's not a guy that I'm hinging playoff hopes or money on.
No, that's fair. Now let's get to the Vegas Wild series that is, my understanding, is going to start Sunday evening in Vegas. And the Wild, of course, man, what a win for them to get in, Frank. They score with the goalie pulled. They needed to get the win. Well, they just needed a point, and they got the point. Otherwise, the Calgary game tonight might actually, have something to play for. Had Minnesota not been able to score that late goal, and then they win it. Marc-Andre Fleury comes off the bench to overtime, ends up getting a win. I do want to talk about that one day. How goalies are the only ones who really get statistical benefits from shootout wins, but nonetheless, the Wild come in. They are the healthiest they've been. The last game was the first time since mid-November that they played all of their lineup. Brodin, Spurgeon, Eriksson, Middleton, Kaprizov, all of them. They all played. So I look at the Wild and going up against a Vegas team that's arrested some guys here down the stretch. There is some concern a little bit maybe about how healthy Jack Eichel is. He did play last night, got a point. How do you see the series?
I see the Vegas Golden Knights as the team in the NHL that no one is talking about. We're so fixated and focused on Dallas and Colorado and the Battle of Florida, and even talking more about Kings and Oilers. I think this is well set up for the Golden Knights to go and win it all, to be the team that emerges from the West. So we were talking earlier about really hot teams entering the playoffs, right? And I think it's probably lost on some people just how good the Golden Knights have been down the stretch. So if you're looking at since Four Nations face-off, the Blues have the best points percentage and record, 19-4-3, buoyed by that 12-game winning streak. The Kings, believe it or not, have as many wins since the Four Nations break as the Blues. Then you've got the Leafs, and right under them at 17-5-4 are the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah.
Then I look at their defense core and I say, big, mobile, productive. I look at their forward group. They've got depth. They've got experience. They've got Jack Eichel. Why aren't more people talking about the Vegas Golden Knights as an authentic candidate and contender to win?
Fair question. The only concern I have in Vegas is the health of Jack Eichel, because he's that important to that team. And I know he played last game, so I got to assume he's fine. That's the only concern. Now, I'm still picking Vegas to win the series. I just think they have more top end. I think it's going to be a physical series. I think it's going to be an intense series. I think it's going to be quite competitive. Like I don't see a lot of blowout games. I think Vegas though does have top to bottom a deeper blue line, deeper offense, and Aiden Hill, Gustafsson. If you want to saw it off, fine. Some might give the advantage to Hill, sure. But it's only there's that small part of me that's like, if Minnesota is going to pull off an upset, because make no mistake, it would be an upset. It's because Jack Eichel just isn't going to be 100%. Because if he is, then it's Vegas, and it's not much question for me. Because when Eichel's been out, you look at their offense, Frank, in the month of April, they're like 25th, right? When Eichel's not in, they're a different offensive team.
Yeah, well, I'm in a media playoff pool, a fantasy pool, where you basically pick a roster in a snake draft. You can pick anyone in the league, and you have to bet on essentially which teams or players are going to play the most games to compile you the most points.
Right.
I out of 17 teams, I ended up in a randomizer with the number 1 overall pick. And I thought long and hard about who to select. And I ended up picking Eichel.
With the first overall pick?
Yes. Who would you have picked?
Kucherov.
What if they lose to the Panthers in round 1?
Yeah, well, I don't have them losing there, so that's why I would have picked him.
Okay. But I'm saying, like, you're flirting with that. Like, you could easily see, like, that series is a coin flip at best. No?
I still might even take McDavid, to be honest, because even if he doesn't get to the Cup final, in 3 rounds, he could outscore guys.
But again, I see the Golden Knights as a team way steadier ground than the Oilers. I don't know how you could make an argument otherwise.
Yeah, well, Jack Eichel's an interesting one. It is. I'd be curious who would be the average, like if they went over the stats, who's the number 1 pick in most pools? It'd be a fascinating question.
So do you want to? I'll rattle off for you. Then this is all hockey media people that made their selections. It went Eichel, McKinnon, Kucherov, Kyle Connor, Austin Matthews, and then Connor McDavid went 7th. Leon Draisaitl went 8th. Nylander, Makar, Scheifele, Robertson, Marner, Reinhardt, Strome, Barkov, Wyatt Johnson, Mikko Rantanen, Braden Point, and Brandon Hagel. So there was 20 teams.
Who got Robertson because they're basically out. Their first round pick could not even be playing. Like that's just
Are
tough
they
to win.
though? Like, well, that
yeah, because he's hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's But the draft was yesterday before the game.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what
brutal.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
Someone's throwing their draft. They're just throwing it out.
Please, like I want you to I don't it's hard to feel great about anything when it comes to predicting the playoffs, but shit on my Jack Eichel pick at number 1.
Yeah, well, no, like it's an interesting one. I don't I just think Kucherov scores more, so that's the only thing. But
there's a premium, by the way, on this pool in goals. So that's why I struggled with Kucherov. Another reason why I struggled.
Yeah. Oh, so goals get you more points, like 1.5 points?
Yeah. I think it's 2 points for a goal and 1 point for an assist.
It's like Paul Paduti. Did you see his article the other day about changing the scoring system? It was definitely thought provoking. I have to say that. And it made me go, whoo. I don't mind. I'm not sure I love the secondary assist though, because sometimes the secondary assist is more important in a lot of cases. But anyway, so you have Vegas in what?
I have Vegas in 6.
Yes, me too. So kind of boring. We agree. So now let's get to the last series. It's the Kings and the Oilers, and it sounds like probably they're not starting until Monday, Frank. So second year in a row they'll start late, which has happened. I think there's going to be 2 series on Saturday. We'll probably see 4 series start on Sunday, and then I wouldn't be surprised if the Florida-Tampa series doesn't start till Monday either. So we'll see. But the Oilers and the Kings, the Kings obviously have pretty good health. Joel Edmondson, they expect to be back. He's played a lot of minutes. He's been very good for LA. The Oilers won't be with Matthias Ekholm. Trent Frederick, unlikely to start game 1. Could come in maybe in the series, but I fully expect Evander Kane to be ready to play for game 1. Draisaitl's going to play. McDavid's obviously playing. Zach Hyman's going to play. So give me your breakdown of the series.
Well, it's a clash of styles. I know you said before that you think that it is a poor matchup for the Kings stylistically. It's just they're 2 totally different teams. I think you've got a really strong defending team that still, despite changing their system, still has the echoes and the form of a team that played a very detailed structure and the way that they defend. They've got couldn't be more disparate in special teams to the point that we've made through the course of the episode. LA has a clear advantage in net with Darcy Kemper. And we are also arriving at this point in time with the absence of Ekholm, the increased stress placed on and pressure stressed on Jake Wallman, that the Oilers are more vulnerable than they've been in any of these 4 playoff matchups. That said, I still think the high-end talent wins the day for the Oilers. And I've got Edmonton in 6.
I would argue the last 3 years, the best Kings team was their first year in 2022. I think that was the best team. I
totally disagree. And I would say that the Oilers, the only reason that series extended was because they stubbed their own toe. And I'll never forget the look on Cody Cece's face coming out for warm-ups game 4 in LA. Like he just spent 2 days at the beach. The dude was a tomato. That told me that the Oilers were not ready to play. They took it for granted. Well, and they are the reason that series extended.
If I just look at that Kings roster, I think that might have been their best team, top to bottom.
Why?
I just think they had better players on it overall. And obviously Kopitar's younger, Doughty's younger, so that plays a factor in it. When I look at the
Byfield, I mean, they're just
well, I look at Jonathan Quick played pretty well in that series. Now there's the one game your people are going to look at, sure, but overall he made some unreal saves. Edmonton, I look at the series and I agree with you that the top end talent at the end of the day, like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are two of the top 5 point producers per game in NHL history in the playoffs. They're up there with Gretzky and Lemieux. I think they're third and fourth. And McKinnon might be fifth. But McDavid is healthy. We've seen it now. And a player's healthy, Frank, late in the season when practice ends and it's an optional skate. Most guys, that's when they do their treatment. They end up being in the rink for an hour afterwards. That's how the treatment works for anybody out there. When I was driving my vehicle in, he was driving his vehicle out. McDavid's not even staying for treatment. That's how healthy he is. And I think McDavid is so focused for this team. Draisaitl is going to be healthy. Those guys, they could have played. They just said we're resting guys. I think Edmonton feels like they got something to prove. They feel like they're getting counted out by a lot of people. And, I think they're going to go Michael Jordan with, that offends me. Sometimes you got to manufacture to be offended. And I think that's what they're going to do. And I just think at the end of the day, the LA Kings, they're going to try to win defensively. And I just don't think you can shut down McDavid and Draisaitl for 7 straight games and win low-scoring games. I just don't think you can do it.
I agree. And I think LA's got their work cut out for them. I also think that if you told me in the end that LA won the series, it wouldn't be the most shocking thing ever.
No, I don't think it's not like, hey, they got home ice advantage. So it's not a shock by any stretch of the imagination. But I'll bet on the top end guys when the other team doesn't have offensive punch. Enough of it anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you. Again, you're trying to create that path for yourself in your mind. And it's like, can you keep the Oilers down long enough with the way you defend? Can you win every game 2-1 or 3-2? Like, I think they could win a couple games that way. I just don't think they can do it enough times to win the series.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, actually, Edmonton's being the team that has won a lot of the low scoring games, 2-0 in game 7. In 22 last year, Stuart Skinner, Edmonton got outshot 33-13 in game 4. They win 1-0 on a Skinner shutout. And that to me is the challenge for LA, is that Edmonton in 3 years has shown, if you want to play a patient game, we've figured it out. The Oilers before, they couldn't do that. Now they know how to play a patient game if they have to. And if you play a patient game and then you play the odds that one shift, all I need is one goal from one player, well, I'm going to bet on McDavid or Draisaitl over the other guys because they just, like, no offense, like Kempe to me is the most dynamic Kings forward. Man, I'd love him on my team. I think he's a hell of a player, but he's not in the category of McDavid or Draisaitl.
How nervous if you're an Oiler fan, would you be on a scale of 1 to 10 about Stuart Skinner?
It's a good question. To me, with Skinner, it's funny. Like last year in the playoffs, I think it was Megan Chaika put out, there was 3 performances that were like elite by goal, 9 performances in the NHL that were considered elite, where you're plus 2.5 goals above expected. Skinner had 3 of them. Now, he also had 2 really bad games against Vancouver, and people always seem to focus on the 2 really bad games. And then, like, the other games, like, you look at game 6 against Dallas. I don't know if Edmonton gets to the cup if it isn't for Skinner. Because if you got to go to game 7 in Dallas, I don't think
I get it, but sometimes
if Edmonton's defense is solid, Frank, because Stuart Skinner's not an elite goalie. And that's not a knock. That's just, he's not an elite goalie. So if you expect him, can he steal a game? Yes, he's shown he can steal a game in the playoffs. He did it. But if Edmonton's defense, which, by the way, even with all their injuries, if you look at them down the stretch, they went 7-3 without a lot of their players because they just limited the opposition's chances. They didn't give up. They reduced their high danger, which was their problem from January until March. The Oilers are one of the worst teams at giving up high danger chances off the rush 5-on-5 and scoring chances off the rush 5-on-5. And they've figured that out again. And now they're back up into the top 10, which is where they were all year last year under Knobloch. And if they play that way, Stuart Skinner he doesn't have to be great. He just needs to be solid. My one concern on him is if he allows a bad goal, and eventually there's going to be a goal that the goalie allows. I don't care if it's Vasilevsky, Hellebuck, Skinner that you don't like. At times, he's allowed that one goal to turn into 2 or 3 and become a really bad game. He has to avoid that.
I'm with you. I guess it's not looking at it from a negative perspective or a glass half empty approach. It's just, I don't know that the Oilers even get to the conference final if not for Cal Pickard because Stuart Skinner was so bad. Cal Pickard wins you game 4. If you're down 3-1 in that series, going back to Vancouver, nighty-night, it's over. So like he doesn't get to the opportunity to have the elite game unless Cal Pickard bails him out. And you're not going to survive again with having some of the worst performances from Stuart Skinner. I don't think you're going to survive round 1. I really don't. If he has 2 blow-up games in round 1, it's over.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
I said 1 to 10 scale. My answer would be 8.5. I'm answering my own question.
Yeah, I agree that he can't have the big, brutal performance. That's what he has to avoid. You can have a game where you allow 3 or 4 goals, but it doesn't mean you play poorly. Sometimes you allow 4 goals and you don't play bad, right? That happens. And so to me, but even the game that Pickard won, like he only faced 21 shots, right? Like it wasn't like he had to be great. He just had to be solid, which was good. And Skinner hadn't been that. So you're right. It was a reset for sure. I think to me, the key I look at is everybody's talked about how good LA is at home and they've been a great home team, but they got the worst road record of all the playoff teams. So if you're Edmonton, you get a split and all of a sudden now you've got home ice advantage. Does it matter that much?
So you have Oilers in what?
6.
Okay. Let's just quickly run through our brackets in case anyone didn't listen to the Eastern Conference preview episode on Monday. And we'll pick our cup winners. So run through your 8 real quick.
I have in the East, I have Washington, Toronto, Carolina, and Tampa. And then in the West, I have Colorado, Winnipeg, Vegas, Edmonton.
Okay. In the East, I've got Washington in 7, Canes in a sweep, Sens in 6, Panthers in 7, Jets in 6, Avs in 6, Golden Knights in 6, and Oilers in 6. So that brings us to round 2. Give me your round 2 bracket.
I have Tampa, Washington, Colorado, Edmonton.
Okay. I've got Carolina in 6 over the Caps, Panthers in 6 over the Sens in the Kachuk Bowl, which would be awesome in round 2. Avs in 6 over the Jets, and another 6er, the Golden Knights in 6 over the Oilers.
And who's then in your conference final?
I've got Panthers in 5 over the Canes, and I've got Golden Knights in 7 over the Avs, which would be a titanic matchup.
All right. We have totally different teams. I have Tampa and Edmonton in the conference final.
Okay.
And then
in your cup final?
My cup final is Tampa versus Edmonton.
Okay. And who wins?
I'm going to go Edmonton. I think we're going to have another team that goes to lost and then won, similar to Florida.
Okay. I'm going to go Golden Knights in 6 over the Panthers, a rematch of the cup final from 2 years ago.
So we both have a Pacific Division team winning. Interesting.
And I can't make the Homer joke because you picked the Oilers last year and they obviously got to game 7 and lost. I'm really struggling to see this Oiler team in the same light. And maybe there's a lot of recency bias in that. I just don't think this team this year is as good as last year's team. They're older, they're slower. I just don't see it. And I think their goaltending is a bigger question than it's ever been. And not having Ekholm for one round, I just can't pick the Oilers to get there.
Yeah, well, I'm picking them somewhat as an upset. Because I agree they're not the favorite this year, no question. And McDavid and Draisaitl, to me, it's such an advantage for any team. And I do think Evander Kane is going to add more than people expect. Evander Kane played on one leg last year, and he finds a way to show up. I think that'll be a big boost to their team. And then the wild card for me is if Trent Frederick can come in, Frank, and just play 11 minutes and be aggressive on a team that doesn't have it, it gives them a real different element. Because they've got some forwards that then you push out of the lineup that haven't produced all year long, and that'll make your team better.
Yeah, and if any Oilers fan is upset, Edmonton was my preseason pick. So it's not that I'm not a believer in general. I think we've seen enough evidence to say that if you were to even just look at who gets out of this division in the bracket, not that there's a huge disparity, but where would you say that the Oilers, aside from maybe, and that's it, in your eyes, McDavid and Draisaitl, where's the advantage for Edmonton over Vegas?
Well,
Not positionally, it's not
fair
really
question.
it's
Yeah,
not.
like Vegas to me, like that, I had a harder time in the Pacific. I thought whoever won the Pacific was going to come out of the West, right? So and I went Vegas and Edmonton back and forth. And ultimately I just decided on Edmonton because of McDavid. But I look at it's kind of like Florida and Tampa. Like, I think I could argue whoever wins that series represents the East.
Could totally see that.
Which is crazy because that would be 6 straight years. And I know that the odds will tell you that that's not there, but man, I really like Tampa Bay this year. Which means, and they could lose in 5. Like this is a
crazy, that's why doing that draft, the playoff pool draft, like, is so hard. Like, you could make a case for Nathan McKinnon and the Avs to go all the way, but they could also lose to the Stars in round 1 and none of us would be floored.
Yeah, I feel the least confident about half of my picks this year, to be honest. Right? Like, I could now the Jason Robertson one makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about Colorado for sure. But prior to that, I'm like, oh my God, Dallas could win that series and I wouldn't be surprised. If Florida beats Tampa, I'm not shocked at all. Even a wild card in the West. I don't love Montreal's matchup. I know you do. I don't love their matchup against the Caps, but we'll see. I can't wait for the playoffs, man. I'm so excited. Like, because there's going to be some uncertainty and there's going to be a sweep, I think, Frank, in the first round that none of us see coming.
I could see that.
Yeah. So I just don't know who it is. I wish I could pick it, but I don't know. So it'll be fun. Of course, we'll have playoffs going on Saturday, Sunday. We'll be back on Monday. We'll set up a few of the series to begin then. And good luck to all the teams in it and to all the fans. The number one thing is you just hope your team stays healthy, because a lot of times that's the difference. It's, your GM does a good job and your team does a good job, and then one of your key guys gets hurt and you're playing a really good team. And that's the difference, right? Like, could Florida have won the cup if Matthew Tkachuk was healthy 2 years ago? They very much likely could, but he wasn't healthy, Frank. Like, he couldn't even skate, right? Like, there's a difference between hurt and injured. And when you get a key guy like that out, and sadly, there's going to be, like, Dallas might be the first team. The playoffs haven't even started. And if that report, and there's no reason to question, if that report is accurate and Robertson's done, well, now they're done. So we'll see. That's the rundown, brought to you by Bet365. Enjoy the playoffs.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.